What if the Matrix was never really about machines? What if it was a modern costume, dressed up in code and leather and green rain, for one of the oldest questions humanity has ever asked? Is this world the real thing, or only the layer our senses were designed to survive? Before screens, before computers, before simulation theory had a name, ancient civilizations were already drawing the same map. They just used different words. Veil, shadow, dream, cave, Maya, lower world, illusion, the forgetting. And here is what is strange, what should stop you cold if you let it. These traditions never spoke to each other. They were separated by oceans, centuries, and languages that shared no common root. And yet they kept arriving at the same haunting conclusion, that what the eye sees may not be the whole story. Stay with me, because this goes deeper than you think. When most people hear the word matrix today, they picture green code. They picture AI, servers, simulation theory, philosophers on podcasts arguing about whether we are living inside a computer. That is the modern version, and it is powerful, and it is worth thinking about. But here is what we miss when we start there. The suspicion is not new. The machines may be new, the language may be new, but the core question, whether ordinary human perception reveals the full structure of reality, that question is ancient. And the fact that so many unconnected traditions arrived at the same answer should make us pause. Not because it proves anything, but because it reveals something about the human mind itself. We keep asking this question, across every culture, in every era, with every tool available to us. Why? What are we remembering? Let us start where Western philosophy starts on this question. Greece, around 380 BCE. A philosopher named Plato writes a dialogue called The Republic, and inside it, he describes a cave. Imagine prisoners, chained since birth, facing a stone wall. Behind them, a fire burns. Between the fire and the prisoners, figures move, carrying objects, casting shadows on the wall in front of the prisoners. Those shadows are all the prisoners have ever seen. So the shadows become their reality. They name the shadows. They study the shadows. They argue about the shadows. They build entire belief systems around the shadows. And then, one prisoner breaks free. He turns around. The fire blinds him. He is dragged toward the cave entrance. Sunlight overwhelms him. He cannot see. He wants to go back, but slowly, his eyes adjust, and he sees the world as it actually is. Not shadow, not projection, but the real thing. Plato is not describing a computer simulation. Let us be precise about that. He is describing a projection theory of consciousness. The idea that what we perceive as reality may be a filtered version of something deeper, something we cannot see from inside the cave of ordinary experience. The cave is not a machine. The cave is the limitation of the senses themselves. And here is the part that matters most for what comes next. When the freed prisoner goes back into the cave to tell the others what he found, they do not believe him. They call him dangerous. They want to kill him. Because once you have built your entire life around the shadows, the light feels like a threat. Sound familiar? Now travel east, to ancient India, to a tradition that predates most of what we call civilization. The Vedantic philosophical tradition, the root system beneath Hinduism as we know it today, developed a concept called Maya. Maya is usually translated as illusion, but that translation is too simple, and it misses the point in a way that matters. Maya does not mean nothing matters. It does not mean the world is fake in some cheap, nihilistic sense. It does not mean your life is a delusion you should dismiss. Maya means that what appears final may only be the surface of something infinite. Think about what that actually says. The world is real. Your experience is real. Your love, your pain, your relationships, real. But the surface of that reality, what your senses report, what your mind categorizes, what language divides into separate things, that surface may not be the deepest layer. There is something underneath the appearance, and ordinary human perception, filtered through the five senses and the categorizing mind, may not be built to see it. The Upanishads, ancient Vedantic texts, some composed more than 3,000 years ago, describe Brahman, the infinite, undivided ground of reality. Everything that exists is Brahman appearing in different forms. Maya is the veil that makes the forms look separate. It makes you look like a separate being in a world of other separate things. When according to this tradition, the deepest reality is one field, one consciousness, one unbroken whole. The matrix, in Vedantic terms, is not a machine. It is the appearance of separation. And the exit is not running a program. It is recognizing what was always already there. We have covered Greece and India, but we are just getting started. Because the same pattern shows up in the ancient world again and again, in places and traditions that had no contact with each other, which is either the greatest coincidence in human history or evidence that something in human consciousness keeps bumping into the same wall. Let us keep going. 1st century CE, the Mediterranean world, a collection of spiritual movements that scholars call Gnosticism. These were not one unified religion. They were a family of traditions, some Christian, some Jewish, some drawing from Egyptian, Greek, and Persian thought, that shared a common thread. The material world, in many Gnostic systems, was understood as a lower realm, not the final, highest reality, not the home of the divine source, but a kind of sub-creation, a realm at the bottom of a layered cosmic architecture. Some Gnostic texts describe a figure called the Demiurge, a craftsman god who organizes and governs the material world. This figure is not the highest divine source. This figure is more like a middle manager of reality. The highest divine source, called by different names in different Gnostic texts, but often simply the One, the Pleroma, the fullness, is beyond the material realm entirely. And the human being contains a spark of that source, a fragment of the divine, temporarily housed in the matter of the body, temporarily embedded in this lower realm. The Gnostic word for awakening is gnosis, and gnosis is not belief. It is direct knowing, a remembering. The idea that the deepest part of you did not originate in this realm, and that something in you already knows that. For some Gnostic traditions, awakening was not about hating life. It was not about rejecting the world or becoming paranoid about reality. It was about remembering that the deepest part of you came from beyond the system, not escaping the matrix in fear, recognizing that you were never fully inside it to begin with. Ancient Egypt, one of the most sophisticated civilizations in human history, and one that had a profoundly layered understanding of what a human being actually is. To the Egyptians, you were not simply a physical body. You were a complex, layered architecture of being. The Khat, the physical body, the visible, material layer. The Ka, the life force, the animating double, the energetic blueprint that made the body alive. The Ba, sometimes translated as soul or personality, the aspect of you that could move, travel, leave the body. The Ak, the luminous, transformed spiritual body that emerged after death through a process of becoming. The Ren, your name. To the Egyptians, your name was not just a label, it was a living part of your being. To erase a name was to erase a layer of existence. The Sheut, your shadow. Not just the dark shape on the ground, but a spiritual double. To the Egyptians, the human being was not a single object. It was a layered being. Body, life force, name, shadow, soul, and luminous becoming. The physical body, the part we obsess over, dress, feed, protect, fear losing, was the outermost layer only, the outermost interface. And the ancient Egyptian afterlife journey was not about floating on clouds. It was about navigating the layers, passing through the duat, the underworld, transforming, being tested, being weighed. The heart weighed against the feather of Ma'at, truth, cosmic order, balance. Not your achievements, not your possessions, your heart. Because what you became in the inner layers was what mattered. The matrix, in the Egyptian understanding, is the physical layer only, and the human being is so much more than that layer. Now cross the Atlantic, to Mesoamerica, to the Maya civilization, one of the most mathematically and astronomically sophisticated cultures the ancient world produced. The Maya cosmology was not flat. Their universe was stacked, layered, nested like the rings inside a tree. 13 heavens above, 9 underworlds below, and the middle world, the human realm, sandwiched between them. Each layer had its own qualities, its own beings, its own rules, and the human being existed at the intersection of all of them. Not sealed in one layer, but porous to all of them, capable of moving between them through ritual, through ceremony, through dream, through death. Many ancient worlds were not flat. They were stacked, nested, and alive with invisible architecture. And the Maya were not alone in this. The Norse had 9 worlds on the world tree Yggdrasil. The Vedic tradition described multiple lokas, cosmic realms. Gnostic cosmology described the pleroma, the fullness, above multiple descending realms. Egyptian cosmology mapped the duat as a layered underworld journey. Across cultures that had no contact with each other, the same picture. Reality as layers. The human realm as one level of a larger architecture. The ordinary world as real, but not final. This is not simulation theory. These traditions are not claiming we live in a computer, but they are claiming something structurally similar. That the world we can see and touch is embedded in something larger that we cannot. Now we come to one of the most famous and most debated mysteries in this entire territory. The Dogon people of Mali, West Africa. In the 1930s, French anthropologists Marcel Griaule and Germaine Dieterlen studied the Dogon and reported something extraordinary. The Dogon, according to Griaule and Dieterlen, had detailed knowledge of the Sirius star system, including the existence of Sirius B, a small, dense white dwarf companion star that orbits Sirius A. The problem? Sirius B is invisible to the naked eye. Western astronomers did not photograph it until 1970. So how, the story goes, did the Dogon know? This claim became famous. It spread through books on ancient mysteries, consciousness research, and what people sometimes call forbidden history. It became a touchstone for the idea that ancient civilizations possessed knowledge that modern civilization forgot, or was never supposed to find. But here is where intellectual honesty matters. In the 1990s, anthropologist Walter Van Beek conducted his own fieldwork with the Dogon, and he could not confirm Griaule's findings. The Dogon he spoke to did not demonstrate the same level of astronomical knowledge. Van Beek suggested that Griaule may have inadvertently shaped the information he received, leading his informants, over years of questions, toward answers that reflected his own astronomical knowledge. The Dogon story is not a clean receipt. It is a contested file, and that may make it even more useful. Because the question is not only what the Dogon knew, it is why modern people are so hungry to believe ancient people remembered something we forgot. What are we looking for when we reach for these stories? What gap in our modern understanding are we trying to fill? That hunger itself is the data. Here is what modern science actually confirms. Not spirituality, not simulation theory, science. The human eye sees only a narrow slice of the electromagnetic spectrum. What we call visible light is a tiny band. X-rays, radio waves, gamma rays, microwaves, all real, all around you constantly, all invisible to the human eye. The brain, and this is the key piece, does not passively record reality. It actively constructs it. It fills in gaps. It filters for what is relevant to survival. It ignores vast amounts of what is actually happening and shows you a compressed, edited version of a much larger signal. This is not philosophy. This is neuroscience. You are not experiencing reality. You are experiencing your brain's best guess about reality, based on the limited information your survival-tuned senses were built to collect. The cave is not metaphor. The cave is the skull. And maybe, just maybe, this is what Plato meant, what the Vedantic sages meant, what the Gnostics meant, what the Egyptians mapped with their layers of being. Not that the world is fake, but that the window through which we view it is narrower than we think. Maybe the matrix is not a machine outside you. Maybe it is the narrow bandwidth through which the infinite has to become human. So where does that leave us? In awe. That is where it leaves us. Not in fear, not in paranoia, not in the cheap nihilism that says nothing matters because nothing is real. In awe. Because if these traditions are pointing at something, if the Platonic cave, the Vedantic veil, the Gnostic spark, the Egyptian layers, the Maya architecture, the neuroscience of perception are all circling the same truth from different angles, then what you are is not the body alone. What you are is something that looks through the body, something using this particular bandwidth of perception to navigate this particular layer of a much larger reality. And that is not a small thing. That is the most extraordinary thing. The goal is not to hate the world. The goal is not to unplug in anger, not to reject your life, not to become so obsessed with the idea of the matrix that you miss the actual living happening right in front of you. The goal is to see through the surface with love, because the moment you realize reality has layers, you stop worshiping the shadows, and you start looking for the light. This has been CSNN. If this episode moved something in you, share it with someone who is ready to have this conversation. Subscribe so you never miss what comes next. We are just getting started.